Okay. All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Luzerne County Board of Elections and Registration, August 21st, 2024, regular meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, Ms. Vasaro? Here. Mr. Morelli?
Here.
Mr. Schlosser?
Here.
Mr. Schramm? Here. And Ms. Williams here, all present. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion.
By Ms. Vasaro, second?
All set. Go ahead.
Okay, I think Mr. Schramm beat you to
Okay,
it.
go
I'll say Mr. Schramm seconded it. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? Opposed? None heard? The agenda is adopted. We'll now move into public comment on agenda items. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters listed on the agenda. It's limited to 3 minutes and 1 comment time per person. We'll start with any who are in person. If you'd like to speak on an agenda item, just raise your hand. We'll have you go to the podium. You'll state your name, your municipality, and the agenda item that you're speaking on. Go ahead, right ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shannon Drasher. I am the judge of elections from Black Creek Township. I am commenting on the number 1, the Black Creek poll site. I just wanted to thank you all for the vote to move the polling site. I feel that it's going to be so much better for the voters in lieu of the food sale that was going on. I mean, they'd created some separation for us, but moving it back to where it belongs, it's in a more centralized location for the members of the township, the members of the township and the precinct. And I just feel like it'll be a much better fit. And I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. That's on our agenda for discussion. You probably saw that as an agenda item.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll be talking about that a little bit later in the meeting. Anybody else in person who would like to speak? Go ahead.
Hi, Amy Carosa. I had a question
Your
on,
municipality, please?
oh, sorry, 44?
Amy Carosa?
Yes,
How do you spell your last name?
CARROZZA.
Thank you.
Yes. I have on agenda item number 1, the approval of the SOP document for write-in, overvotes, ambiguous mark adjudication process, and transition of inputting process to Bureau. I was just wondering if that is also going to be something that is discussed, or if it's just the approval, if there was a way that the public can view the SOP. Is that possible?
The attachments are on the website, on the agenda. And so the agenda webpage on the county, they were all posted underneath the agenda.
Oh, the
And you
actual
can
SOP?
see on the agenda what pages they are.
We
for
do
those.
have it available here for you to view. If anybody in the public really needs to view it, they can borrow my copy. I'll let anyone borrow my copy too.
But it's available on the website. Would it be available tonight
It
too?
is. It's
Yeah,
on there
it
right
is.
now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in person who would like to speak? Go right ahead.
I'm Mike Potsko, Hanover Township. On item number 4, the drop boxes. I understand there was a review, and it's pretty concerning that it looks like the number of ballots that were cast differs from the number of people that dropped them off. And I was just wondering how could we be confident that all of these people that dropped off multiple ballots had cards or were, you know, licensed or certified to bring in multiple ballots, and what the county plans to do about making sure that doesn't happen again for this presidential election.
Yeah, that is on the agenda, and we will be discussing that. So you'll be hearing more about that during the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, and I think your question will be answered then.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in person? Go right ahead.
Joe Grantee, Plains. I believe it's item number 3. Status update for the drop boxes in Duryea. I was under the impression that there was so much negativity about them that would be wouldn't be a fitting place, since it's right on the border of Lackawanna County and it's right next to a post office, which would make it unreasonable for somebody to not drop it off at a post office and go to a drop box. So I just wanted to find out what the status is on that, if there was any conversation since the last time you discussed it.
We're going to be talking about that during the meeting. That is
Has-
an agenda item. So you'll hear more about that when we get to that agenda item.
Okay, there has been discussion about that in a non-meeting setting.
There's been very little discussion. And so what's on the agenda is to get a status update from the Bureau.
Okay.
Anybody else in person?
Desiree Edwards, Swearsville. It says here, it's the second number 3 on the board. It says request for Spanish translation inclusion on back of mail-in ballot, how to pack your ballot, instruction card, information, discussion, if required, board vote. But then up above on number 3, status update on board request for inquiry into placement of ballot drop box at Crossin Towers, Duryea, beginning with the 2024 November election and purchase of an additional ballot drop box. So you already put one drop box there, and now am I understanding last year? And now am I understanding that you want an additional drop box there? Is that because you're gonna have more Spanish speaking people voting there? That's why you need the translation on the back of the mail-in ballots, and you need an additional ballot drop box there?
No, they're two separate agenda items. They're not related. The Spanish translation question is not related to that other ballot drop box agenda item. And there is not one ballot drop box placed there at this time. So the additional drop box would be for there. So there is none present at that place at this time.
I thought at the last election, but they wanted to put one there. Oh, okay. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in person who would like to speak all the way in the back?
Hi, thanks for taking my questions. I don't have the benefit of an agenda, so.
I'm sorry, just your name and municipality
Peter, Jackson Township,
and your last name?
Rustano.
Okay, thank you.
Again, I don't have a copy of the agenda, so I'm not sure whether some of this stuff goes over some territory you're going to be covering later tonight, but first question for me, and going back to 22, is some reassurances from the board about how they're addressing, or they have addressed, hopefully, the paper ballot issue.
Okay, Mr. Rustano, this first agenda item, a question time, public comment, is for specific agenda items. We have a second public comment time, which is for items that aren't on the agenda. So He's handing you an agenda right there. If you'd like to
Okay.
take a minute and look at it and then come back, I think there was somebody else who wanted to make a comment, and then you could kind of,
We'll
decide.
reset your
Well,
time.
then that's
Well-
fine. I can come back to it in secondary public comment. Do any of the agenda items here preclude me talking about the election stuff, or are you already covering that, or is that not a specific enough item?
well, it's not, the 2022, if you want to follow up.
Well,
on
we're
that, that
talking
would
about
be
the 24 election, but obviously it
It
has.
would be
ref-
for the second public comment. That
Okay, all right, fair enough.
So if
Yeah.
you, why don't you take a look at the agenda? Okay.
Mhm.
And we'll call you back up in a minute. Well,
you'd like.
everybody, if you want, and we'll reset your time so you actually have a public comment. If you have anything on that agenda prior, or we could just have a discussion after the second
Mm,
public comment, if
that's
that's
fine.
cool.
That's fine.
Okay?
Fair enough. Thanks.
Okay,
this is yours,
thank
Madam
you.
Alonso.
Okay, is there anybody else who would like to provide public comment? Go ahead, right ahead, right, the gentleman right in the front row.
Hi, Jamie Walsh from Ross Township. Question on number 2. Website mail ballot curing notifications for voters brought forward last meeting. Currently, when, let's say a mail-in ballot goes out and that mail-in ballot is returned without an inner secrecy envelope, how are they handled? How are they handled if they don't come back with an inner secrecy?
They're ruled defective because by weight, the agilist can tell, but that they're not heavy enough to have the inner secrecy envelope. So they're ruled defective. And also there's a hole punch on the outer envelope that could show that you could see the ballot and not the yellow inner secrecy envelope. So they're ruled defective.
Okay. I was just, there was just a ruling today out in Butler County about curing defective naked mail-in ballots. I don't know, did you get a chance to read that or see that ruling today at all? Where they, the person had delivered into a drop box a mail-in ballot. It was labeled defective like you guys do. And then they were offered to fill in a provisional ballot at the poll in replacement of that. And the recent ruling, I don't know. I mean, there was only 37 provisional ballots in my race, but it just, when I read the ruling, I thought, well, that's interesting. I wonder how we handle it. And since it was on the agenda for ballot curing, I thought what happened, these people ended up going to a polling location after they had already dropped one in the mailbox naked. And then they were called and said, hey, your ballots are naked, go to the poll and fill out a provisional ballot. And they were accepted by the county, or they were declined by the county. The county was sued. And then the court just upheld the county's decision today that if that does happen, and I just didn't know if we had run into anything like that in Luzerne County, because these mail-in ballots are causing all kinds of issues that we've never seen. The drop boxes, they exacerbate the issue because now you got people dropping them off, then getting called, hey, your ballot's not good, so go fill out a provisional ballot at the polls. And it just, there's so many problems with the mail-ins and the curing process that I just didn't know how we would handle that as a county if someone did the same exact thing here.
Yeah, we
If you
would
could-
follow the advice of our legal, our solicitor on what the latest law is that we are supposed to follow on the board and the bureau. As that gets closer to election, we always ask, what is the most recent law, case law on that type of situation. As for them being dropped in a ballot drop box, it's no different than if they're dropped in a mailbox. They're still going to be deficient if they're a naked ballot or no secrecy.
That's a
envelope.
great point, because
Yeah.
that proves the whole point we're talking about as to why do we need drop boxes anyway? Because there's mailboxes in every single township that can be mailed So what's the purpose of a drop box? So thank you
Thank
for,
you.
for,
Yes,
Thank
but for the
confirming that.
record, we do cure ballots here in Luzerne County.
Yes. Anybody else in person? Yes. Go right ahead.
Good evening. My name is Ben Herring from Berwick, but I'm actually going to speak tonight as the president of the Citizens Advisory of Pennsylvania, which is a nonprofit in our area. The reason I want to speak in that role tonight is because yesterday we sent a notice to the Luzerne County Housing Authority. I know you're going to speak about this tonight, but I just want to give you guys kind of a preface over what we're looking into. So as per the time, really curious to hear the results of this investigation into the Dropbox surveillance. The fact that the Times Leader is reporting what I think are your numbers, and there's not a one-to-one reconciliation of votes to people. And there's also no verification that you have the ability to check somebody's agent card that says they're allowed to do that. So the only conceivable solution to that would be to put a deputy sheriff out 24/7 over every single drop box in the county to ensure that ballot harvesting is not occurring. We sent the Luzerne County Housing Authority a letter and basically told them that we've consulted with our attorney, and I want to make you guys aware of that we told them to, if the Dropbox goes in Duryea, you'll have to hold on to those records. We've already RTK'd successfully 2 different times, 2022 Papergate, 2024 primary. We've won at the OR, we've won at Luzerne County Court of Common Pleas, and we're going to win at the Commonwealth and the Supreme Court if we have to. Those are public records. So if you're going to put a Dropbox anywhere in this county, make sure you know they're public records. We are going to right to know them. We're going to take it all the way through the court process if we have to. And now Luzerne County Housing Authority cannot say they're not aware of that because we let them know yesterday. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in person who would like to speak? I don't see any hands up. Okay, so we'll now move to the Zoom platform, and RK has their hand up. So go right ahead, RK. State your name.
Ron Knapp. Ronald Knapp from Nanticoke, Pennsylvania.
Okay, go right ahead.
Agenda number 4 in regards to the drop boxes. I want to know if the cameras that will be on those drop boxes, are they under setting motion detection, or is it recording 24/7? The reason why I asked the question is because there's not enough resources to view the recording 24/7 for the time that they're open. I am not a proponent of drop boxes, but if they're set on motion detection, that sort of narrows the time frames that they would have to be reviewed. I'm 100% behind the previous speaker. I concur with everything he's put into place. That's all I have to say.
Mr.
Okay,
Knapp,
thank
I
you.
think it depends on the location. So that's all I have. I can come back with on that.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised online. There is one person who's on an iPhone. I think you have the ability to raise your hand if needed. So it looks like we're going to now, oh, I do have an email. Wait. I have one email to be read into the record. And the email is from Robin and Walter Cochan from Dallas Township. And it states, Dropboxes and boards committee report. 84% of Americans lack confidence in our elections. The Election Bureau and board have a responsibility to be transparent, comply with existing laws, and hold fair elections so no voter is disenfranchised. We have expressed numerous times our various concerns over mail-in ballots and drop boxes. So to the board and anyone continually supporting drop boxes because they are more convenient, we ask if you believe it's reasonable for taxpayers to incur all the additional expense and time, staff resources, and court fees to continue this process, which only muddles election integrity rather than strengthen it. Your own report identifies numerous problems with mail-in ballots, largely due to voters who cannot follow directions, such as 90 with a wrong date, 68 without a signature, 40 with no date, 245 sent to undeliverable addresses that the Bureau has not removed from voter rolls, curing notification problems for mail-in ballot voters, et cetera, et cetera. Under Pennsylvania law, Voters must return their own ballots. The only exceptions to this are voters with a disability who have designated someone in writing using the authorize a designated agent form to deliver their ballot. The law states that either the disabled person or their designated agent may return the voted ballot to the Board of Elections by mail or in person. The law does not indicate the ballot can be placed in the drop box. Your report for the Pittston and Misericordia drop boxes indicates a number of the voters deposited more than one ballot, yet there is no way of telling whether or not they had the proper paperwork. This report, by the way, is from an election held 2 years ago. Not only has the problem not been resolved, it's continued for that many more elections. Not verifying that voters have the proper paperwork for placing more than one ballot in a drop box taints voting integrity and underscores why drop boxes are rife for fraud. This does not restore voter confidence. If you have no way to verify the law is being followed, drop boxes are unlawful. If you are not following the law, you are not providing fair elections, and drop boxes should not be used, nor additional ones added until you find a way to follow the law and be fully transparent. Again, we expect you to comply with the law and hold fair elections. Okay. The next item on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes. We have several on the agenda. We have April 10th, pages 4 through 5, April 26th, special meeting, pages 6 through 27, and July 17th, special meeting, pages 28 through 30. I'm going to start with those. We had 3 more listed that we have not received. They have not been submitted by those who volunteered to transcribe or.
I will have mine done by September. The September meeting, with the drop boxes and everything else, it's been a little crazy. So,
okay. And also, I just wanted to throw out there, if anybody needs any assistance, I'm willing to help out to do, I'll gladly volunteer to do any of those other ones. June 12th is also needed as well. So if you want me to do one, I'm happy to do it. Just let me know. But the ones that we do have for approval tonight are April 10th, April 26th, and July 17th. And so I'm going to open it up to see if there are any amendments to any of those prior to approval, and we'll just approve them all at once. I only have one thing that I wanted to address, and it's for the April 26th adjudication meeting, the long one, 16-hour meeting. I did those minutes. And one of the things I noted during it that's not on the recording, might be a legal question on this one, is I know that during it, I have a recollection of that we voted at some point that, and we talked about it, and Attorney Raddick said, wait until it comes up. And when it comes up, vote on it then. And it was whether a circled yes or no for a ballot question would be considered a vote. Would we as a board consider that a vote? I do believe it came up. We must have voted on it. It's not on the recording, so we must not have turned on the recording for it. It could have been an informal vote. I don't have it on my roll call vote sheet, so I'm thinking it was an informal vote. I did reach out to Mr. Schramm to ask him if he had anything in writing on it. My thought is, I know that we then addressed it as it came up, and we all agreed as we were doing it that it was circled and we considered it a vote. So we must have informally voted at some point. But my thought is, since I don't have it in the minutes because I went right off of the recording, down the road, we might have to re-vote on that unless the attorney or Mr. Schramm has found it. I know
we need to check the recordings because I remember voting on that.
It's not on the recording. So I think the recording wasn't turned on at that point. That it's not on the recording. I listened for it, and I know we did vote on it.
I do remember voting on it.
So if you're just asking if that comes up again in a future election, just
re-vote on it.
Discuss and vote on it again. Yeah.
We can't amend the minutes because I have nothing to go on. I don't have anything in my notes either unless anybody else does. Okay, all right. So
I can look.
That's
and
all
see, and if so, we'll amend it if I can find them in my notes.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything that they want to amend, either April 10th, the 26th, or the July 17th meeting minutes? What are they? I mean, the agenda that's on are you talking about July 17th? Okay, what specifically do you want amended? Let me get to it
You
here.
want this back?
I mean, I looked through both of the new one that you sent, and they're all pretty much exactly the same.
No, it's formatted.
Right, but the wording is still the same.
So has anything changed of the
Content.
substantive,
Content?
anything
Substantive,
content?
No.
Okay, it's only formatting changes? Okay,
I think we're good to go with it the way it is personally, the original one that you sent. I know you underlined some things and it looks nice, but nothing of the substance is different that I could see. Okay, so.
Madam Chair, on the agenda,
Mhm.
under approval of meeting minutes from July 17th, was that a regular? I know I wasn't here. That was a special meeting that night?
Oh, no, I'm
No,
sorry.
July 17th should have been a regular
It
meeting.
is a regular meeting.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
And
My mistake
again,
on
just
that.
to clarify,
Yeah.
the minutes are what they are, but
It
I
is a
just wanted to
regular
point
meeting,
that out.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the April 10th, April 26th, and July 17th meeting minutes?
So moved.
Ms. Fusaro, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Schlosser. All in favor, say aye.
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 Abstentions? Opposition? None heard. Those meeting minutes are approved, and for September, we'll have those 3 plus tonight's for approval. We'll move into the agenda items. The first one is under Bureau. It's approval of the standard of procedure document for write-in, overvotes, ambiguous mark, adjudication process, and transition of inputting process to the Bureau leadership. It's been brought forward from the previous meeting, and it's on the agenda for information, discussion, board vote. Attached to the agenda was a proposal that I proposed for pages 31 through 34. And then attached also is Ms. Cook did also an initial proposal. 35 through 41 are the pages. And also there's a linked document, the Pennsylvania Department of State's What Constitutes a Vote was a link to the agenda. There are 2 proposed motions that are listed on the agenda, one by Mr. Morelli to have the Bureau of Elections do the data entry process for the write-in votes process. And the second one is a proposed motion by myself, Ms. Williams, transition of the write-in, overvote, and ambiguous mark inputting to the Bureau leadership or Bureau contracted workers contingent upon a standard of practice for the process first being established and approved by majority board vote. So I'll turn it over for discussion. I'm going to just start and just say I'm good with all 3 of these being the standard of procedure document. I think all of them together really constitute what is covered as in that process. And so that's all I have to say. Go ahead.
Ms. Williams, if I could jump in, I'm fine with them as well. Again, just to clarify why I put that motion on, I think everyone knows from the past, I thought it's important for the board to remove themselves from that process. And my concern was the fact that if we keep going around and round and round and delay, that won't happen. So I asked for a motion to be put on specifically for that in case things get derailed here. But if I guess I'll leave it up to you how you want to handle it. I would vote for your motion because it does the same thing that I'm asking for. And then we would just, I guess I would make a motion. I would suggest voting on your motion first. And if that's the case, there's no need for my motion. I would just remove it from the agenda. Does that
Anybody
make
else?
sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
So I've been tossing this around, and I kind of I think that from a place of, sitting and watching, I think is, better during that process to be able to watch like several different one thing that was really cool about during the write-in adjudication was what was that guy that was in there? He was the Republican member. I can't think of his name, but he was there and he was sitting there and he's like, up, and it was like he was able to catch things because he was sitting there viewing them on the screens all at once. And it seemed to be easier for him to do it. So if I'm doing it, I'm not able to, watch what 3 other people are doing. And so I do like this aspect of being able to watch somebody else do it. So yeah, I do agree with it.
Anybody else?
No, my thing is I would just prefer to watch rather than sit there and constantly put it in because it is tiring, with it. I don't mind doing 5 or 10, but when you start to get into 2,300, 23,000, it gets to be tedious. And I think I could see more if I was watching and observing what was being done and could catch more than if you miss things. Because I got caught with one that I missed. I had misspelled the name or something and and it had to be corrected. But I didn't even catch that with it.
No, I'm fine with it, Denise.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to make a motion to the transition of the write-in overvote and ambiguous mark inputting to the Bureau leadership or Bureau contracted workers contingent upon the standard of practices for the process first being established and approved. Okay, I
Second.
guess we're going to have to go back and first approve these as the standard of practice, and then we will how about if I change my motion? I'm going to make a motion to accept the proposal by Ms. Williams for the step-by-step adjudication process for the write-ins, Ms. Cook's as well, along with what constitutes a vote, and the transition to the Bureau leadership and their contracted workers to do the inputting.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Seconded by Ms. Fusaro, and roll call vote. Mr. Morelli,
Yes.
Mr. Slosser.
Yes.
Mr. Schramm.
Yes.
Ms. Fusaro.
Yes.
And Ms. Williams, yes. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the website mail ballot curing notifications for voters. I put this on the agenda. It was brought forward from the last meeting. It's something that's actually been brought forward from 2 meetings. We discussed this also during the April 26th adjudication meeting. It's for information discussion and if required board vote. I don't know that this requires a board vote. It might be just a matter for the Bureau because the curing has been a matter for the Bureau when they send out the emails. It wasn't something we ever voted on. But I just make a mention, a couple things, and then I'll turn it over to anybody else if they have anything to add. During the post-primary adjudication meeting, I made a request and asked if Ms. Cook said she would look into this, if we could put the names of those who have defective mail ballots determined by the Agilis to put on the website. They are already informed by email, but the concern was a lot of people don't have email. They might be old emails. They might be inputted wrong. And so that was the question. Some other counties are doing it: Allegheny, Philadelphia, Erie County, Greene County, and Fayette County do. Those last 2 do something a little bit different. Greene County supplies a daily list of info about defective mail ballots to party committees, kind of like what we do as a board on election day. And Fayette County mails letters in addition to the emails and phone calls, which could be a little bit more time consuming to do that and costly rather than just putting on the website. We did put those who were challenged in the provisional hearing on the website, those voters whose provisionals were being challenged. And also we do post the names of those who failed to file their campaign finance reports. With those thoughts all in mind, my question was if there's any way we can help these mail-in ballot voters to become aware, or if we could do something more to help out. I don't know if the emails get everyone. We had 50 people, 6 that the election before we got through to a few more than the first time, but couldn't we even do better? That's my question. So anybody else?
I don't agree with curing to begin with, so. And I say that every time, but I said I don't agree with curing anyway.
Okay, this isn't public comment time. Is there any other board
They
member?
said they couldn't hear me, so that's why I had to speak up.
That's not what she said. Any other board member? Okay. And I guess my only question would be for Ms. Cook. I know you said you were going to look into it, if there's any, the status of that.
I mean, there is, physically, are we capable of doing it? Yes, we are able to pull a report, just like I would for within the shore system. I think the question would further kind of, I would defer to the Office of Law, and if that's something that we should do. Physically, yes, we are capable of doing that, but I'll defer to Attorney Molino.
Yeah, I cannot find a legal impediment to it. And my advice isn't based on any cost or anything like that. But I mean, if the board were to suggest this and the Bureau was to undertake this, I think the option to mail a letter would be preferable. Again, I'm not considering cost or anything like that in the equation. But putting these names on a website, it's public, everyone can see, Gene Molino, didn't have a signature, his ballot's defective. Emily Cook missed the date. I understand the example given about the provisionals, but there's a part in the code that's right in the statute about the public notification on the provisionals. So that's the differentiation there. My feeling is I wouldn't do it. I mean, this board there was already a curing process. You provide those lists to the party chairs or their designees.
Yeah, but that's on election day.
That's on election day. I understand.
We have
right.
found by numbers that
Right.
it really,
Right.
it doesn't get through.
And it's all
hardly
over the
anybody.
map. I
But
mean,
with the
counties.
Agilist, you get it in a week, 2 weeks. That's
Mhm.
a lot more time.
And I will throw out a plug for any voters who are curious about the status of their ballots or their registration or anything having to do with your polling place. All of that information can be found on the pavoterservices.pa.gov website. You can track your ballot status, whether it was received, when it was mailed, when it was returned, and if it was canceled due to any deficiency. You can also find your polling place information and your provisional ballot status. It's all on there.
Okay, so the number approximately, I think the last election that we adjudicated in total was around 350. It's approximately 350 to 400 adjudicated defective mail ballots. I don't think it was over that. So I'm thinking, is that a large number to mail out to people, to say a large number of letters? Is that a hardship for the Election Bureau to generate a letter instead of an email, or in addition to an email, to say, we found that your mail ballot's defective?
Well, the email notification happens as part of an automatic process with their shore registration. We don't generate an email manually to those voters. So generating a letter would be a different process entirely. We would need to pull their specific address information, draft and generate letters that would, I'm sure, need to be going through several layers of approval in order for us to mail them. And that, again, does not include costs of sending out mails.
Then they'd have to be tailored for the specific reason, because again, these are not all going to be rejected for the same reason. So it's not that you could just have a boilerplate.
You'd have to have
Letter,
somebody
you have to explain.
designated to do
Right.
all of the
Yeah.
curing.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they would have to literally, okay, this is a no date mailer, this one's a no,
Right.
that would just be a mess.
Yeah, I mean,
Can
my
you-
recommendation would be no, and again, I know it's all over the map, different counties, you've cited them, some do it, I've seen in our count, or our statewide emails, I mean, there are some counties dead set against it, they won't even do a curing list on election day. And I'm not saying they're right, but it's
up to board.
I think most do not, right? Most do not do curing. Mhm.
It's
So-
it's based on majority board vote. That's
Mhm.
the bottom line.
Yeah,
So
I lost that
those
one.
boards of elections voted against it, obviously, or maybe they never even voted. It hasn't even presented to them. But here in Luzerne County, we voted and the majority board voted to cure and we do it before every election. And that's just for us to do on election day. That's not the Agilis email generated curing. The Bureau does that on their own, and we were told they can do that on their own.
That was something that came as part of the Department of State.
Yes.
That was not the Agilis, that was not the Bureau of
right.
Elections of Luzerne County's decision.
Right.
So that is something that was above all of our pay grades.
Yes.
And I know you mentioned about the campaign finance failed to file list, as Attorney Molino mentioned earlier with the provisional ballots, that is also mentioned directly in statute.
Okay.
That is in the code that we must post that list.
So those counties that are posting these are violating the law?
No one has said that.
Okay. Because I know there are other counties doing that, and other counties are doing different things to try to assist these voters. And, whether it be sending the party chairs a daily list or every other day. I mean, is that something that would be easy to do, to send it even to the board and the chair, and then the chair could forward on, or you could send to the party chairs a listing, and then they could contact like we do on election day?
The board has already established your curing procedure. If you would like to vote to change that, that is entirely your prerogative. But what I'm advising you is the posting it on the website as you had on the agenda. I would advise against that particular process.
Okay. Is the Bureau leadership interested in doing any additional notification to the voters, or no?
I think we're doing a very good job of notifying the voters when there is an issue with their ballots. Those voters that are provided with an email address receive that, and I plug at every opportunity the options that voters have to find the status of their ballot. And more often than not, voters will call our office and say, did you receive my ballot? What is the status of my ballot? And we provide it to them at that point as well.
Yeah.
So I understand where you're coming from
I know that
on
when
this
there's
topic.
350 to 400 that are defective that we have to adjudicate, I'd like to cut down on those numbers if we could save some time too.
As would I, but unfortunately, people don't read the instruction sheets and I can't fix that.
Okay, so I do have a solution.
Yeah.
I do have a solution, and I don't know if it'll work out. I'm not for curing ballots, but if we're going to cure the ballots, the only other solution I have is that the board goes in and does it so that I'm not stuck doing it on election day for hours on end. So, you want to go in early and do it. I'm sure that the Bureau can make that available. I think putting it on the Bureau to do is a lot of work prior to the election. I don't think they deserve that, especially when they have all the other stuff that they have to do. So if you want to cure the ballots prior to, and you want to let people know prior to that they have an issue and that they can come in, then I suggest that the board handle it. Just a thought.
On that thread, it might be worth exploring to come in the day before the election and do the bulk review.
I think
And
that's a
that
great
way,
idea.
At
Yeah.
the end of the day, on the day before the election, you can provide to the party chairs the information for the curing list, just as you would on election day. And that will afford voters and the parties more time and the most up-to-date records of what ballots had been canceled due to deficiency.
Well, I'll be glad to, as it gets closer to election day, to update the curing procedure to maybe add the day before and election day. And we just really would be addressing pre-canvassing numbers at that point, which would be a lot less. And then we would vote on that then. So, okay, everybody okay with that? Maybe changing that, and it would cut down on also all the bar work on election day as well. Okay, let's move on then, unless anybody has any reason to say anything else. We'll move on to the next item, which is number 3, status update on board request for inquiry into placement of ballot drop box site at Cross and Towers Duryea, beginning with the 2024 November election and purchase of additional ballot drop box. This is, was discussed prior to the the April 2024 primary election. At that meeting, it was stated by the Bureau leadership that they'd have to do some looking into that for the different things, different aspects of placement of that, and for the November 24th and moving forward. So I'll turn it over to the Bureau leadership to give a report on that.
Sure. So the site assessment was done on the Cross and Towers building. Obviously, the site is ADA compliant in terms of the access to the box. Their area where the box would be located is in an enclosed front entrance area. There is an automated 36-inch wide sliding glass door that opens into a 9x7 area where the drop box would be located. Further entry into the building is limited to residents only. Is that better? Okay. Sorry about that. By and large, the building is ADA accessible. And further details about the specific sizes of the building and the room where the box would be located. The limitations. The site residents voiced concerns about their own personal safety. With many unknown people coming into the building, some people could potentially gain access to parts of the building where they should not have access to. And so there was concern from the residents at that building due to that. There is a resident parking lot in front of the building with a number of places designated as handicap parking. Due to resident usage, there is exceptionally limited parking available for people to stop and drop off their ballots. There is a driveway with direct access to the front entrance, but it is a no parking area, so voters would need to go and find a parking place. There are no accessible video cameras currently in place that provide coverage of the area where we would locate the box. So the Bureau will need to contract with a vendor for the installation of a video camera and recorder. The estimated cost is about $2,500. And that is without going out to request prices on the cameras. The Bureau does not currently have a drop box to place at this location, and so we would have to purchase one. The county boxes that we have purchased from the same vendor would cost about $3,658 to include our Luzerne County stickers that customize them to note that it is one of our boxes. Delivery time from there is about 3 to 4 weeks from the order, which it doesn't happen instantaneously. We also need an executed memorandum of understanding if this location is determined to be something that we'd like to pursue. Thank you.
I'll go for when the Hazleton was installed, which was the last one, we had the county cameras put in then. It was about the same price, the $2,500. Thinking my recollection was Miss Pecora took care of that, and she had the contractors come out and install that.
Right. We do need to find a vendor to do that though. So we would need to go out for some type of bid.
Okay. And then that price for the drop boxes really hasn't changed too much since the purchase of the 4 that we purchased back in the summer of 2021. It's about exactly the same. I have been up there. I have seen the parking lot. It seemed like there was plenty of parking. I know when we discussed this the one time, we talked about the 44 near the airport, the building that the county now owns. And the concern was that there was very limited parking. And so that everybody said, no, there's not enough parking. Mr. Mangan said there was not enough parking there. And that was determined as not a good site to use because there wasn't enough parking. So I went and drove to this site, and there's a large parking lot there for this building. And I know that we also use one other housing authority building for a ballot drop box. It's in Wright Township, and they have a very large parking lot as well. And the residents there, have they had any concerns over the last, I think that's been their 4 elections now?
The security in place at those buildings is different, so that they're not comparable locations in terms of the setup.
And what's the difference?
I'm sorry.
What's the difference between the Wright Township Housing Authority buildings, security than what would be at the Frank Crossan?
Mr. Hahn, would you like to speak on that?
Sure, I'm sorry. At the Wright Township building, the people would have to go, you can get into the front lobby area, that front door is open. Then you're in a vestibule area. You would have to have a key fob to unlock the inner door to be able to get into the area where the residents live. On the way out from there, they would, or there's a phone, you could call a resident and say, I'm here to visit you, open the door. When you exit that building, you have to push a button that will unlock the door so you can go out. The arrangement at the Crossan Center is a little different, that there is no button to open the inside door. It's a motion sensor. So if someone on the inside walks past that door, it opens. So someone then could, if they're in the lobby, they could just walk in, whether they were invited in or not. Pardon?
Isn't there a person at Wright as well?
Usually there's somebody sitting there and there's a maintenance person. There are 30 units at Wright Township. It's a very much smaller place, and there are typically people, residents that sit right there and keep guard, so to speak, on who comes and goes. The parking at both of the places when I was there, and it's a very limited, I didn't talk to everyone that lives there, but at both places, it was mentioned that that's resident parking and it's very limited to them. It may appear at different times, there may be quite a few empty parking places, but the residents, they don't have their own parking place, but they look to that. That's where they have to park.
Right, but if somebody's bringing a ballot to drop off, they're only being there momentarily. Yeah, they're not taking up a parking spot for a long-term period. They're just coming in, dropping it off and leaving. This isn't public comment time.
Yeah.
The other question I had, you mentioned somebody sitting there at the Frank Crossan. Is there someone like at a window or
Sitting
door?
where?
Did you say somebody?
The residents in their free time will sit in the lobby areas to talk to each other, whatever. So they're
But the
often,
security is more at
There
the
is-
Wright Township, not this.
in terms of
Crossan.
getting into the building. If you could stand in the lobby, somebody walked by the door on the inside, which opened that inner door, I could walk right in the building.
Mhm. And that could happen if it's somebody going there, even not for a ballot drop box, any time of the day, right?
Correct, but the point of some of the people mentioned that you're drawing more people there, which people that wouldn't be there normally.
Sure.
Whether that was the concern of a couple of people. I'm not saying that it was everyone's concern or anything of that sort.
Sure. This would be helpful for the residents as well, for their own ballot drop boxes as well. Any other questions for any of the you had mentioned you were going to talk to the manager of the building and to find out if they were agreeable to this? They're a manager to this building?
The building each of the buildings have a maintenance person. The approval, I believe, would have to come from the Luzerne County Housing Authority by way of executing the memorandum of understanding. They would have to look at that, sign off on that, and then if we have the box available, it would be delivered to them.
All right.
Okay, so is it my turn?
Go ahead.
Okay, after spending some time reviewing Dropbox footage, I am seriously concerned. The 2022 footage that we watched still does not add up. And while watching Penn Place most recently, I have even more concerns with what I've witnessed. I stand firmly on my beliefs that the drop boxes do not belong in Luzerne County. However, now I have even more issues because now we're putting seniors at, potential risk of someone coming into that building, and we
Could you
have
please be quiet?
we
Thank you.
have issues with that, but then we have even more issues because here's my question to you guys. Who approves the $60 to almost $6,200, assuming that we are able to get it at that price for the Dropbox, the video cameras, and extra security? Who approves that money to do that? So it would come out of the Election Bureau budget. I'm just assuming. You don't have to. I'm just saying it would come out of your budget, which would have to be approved by the manager, I'm assuming. Okay. And we don't know if that's something that would be feasible. That would have to go in front of her. And I don't want to speak to that because we don't have a budget ourselves. And I don't know if County Manager Crockamo, would you like to speak to that? Is that?
Sure.
I saw you pop on, so I figured I should.
Yeah, you said the B word, the budget word. It has to be in the budget, and I want to be absolutely forthright with everyone about two things. Number one, I don't know if there is money in the budget. We have a very tight budget. And I don't know if there's enough money in the budget to pay for these supplies. And number two, I do have to tell you that I have very serious concerns, safety concerns, just generally for the election in November. And securing drop boxes is one of my concerns. We do not have the manpower to have a sheriff stationed at a drop box. And I will be absolutely transparent. If we are going to use monies, I would like to use those monies to enhance security. But at this point, I cannot tell you right now that I can find the monies in the budget. I wish if there was 2020
election.
If it
Would
was
this fall under the
2029,
election integrity grant?
I think we've used our money for the grant. We're getting another grant. I think it comes in September, Emily. And I can tell you, I'm rolling out. I will be. We are looking into to provide safety measures for our poll workers. That will be a substantial amount of money, and I'd like to get that done. We're getting bids to make sure our poll workers are safe. So as I said, I would prefer to use the monies to enhance security for our Bureau workers, for the board. We are going to be inundated with individuals who, whether they're watch groups, the press, on election day, we have to make sure that we have enough security in the Penn Place building that nobody will feel at risk. So I just want to be absolutely honest with the board and the public. I'm not sure we will have the money to pay for all these enhancements at a site that we don't even own.
Denise, can I ask a question?
Thank you
I-
very, can I finish? I did not get,
Mr. Morel
but I
has-
still did not get to finish my questions.
Oh.
And I was
Go ahead. I thought
very
you finished. Go,
respectful
go.
while you were
Let's make
doing
it quick.
yours.
Mr. Morelli has his hand up.
So thank you very, very much, Manager Crocamo, and also the Bureau. I would like to thank the Bureau for going above and beyond and doing the site inspection, as well as a obvious, pretty comprehensive report on what the accessibility and all of that. And there was a question I had, but I lost it. It was a follow-up question to Manager Crocamo, but if I get it, I'll try to remember it, but I was interrupted, so.
Mr. Morelli?
Yes, thank you. Just a couple questions, and I'll keep it brief and simple. How do we come up with the locations? I mean, I'm relatively new here. We put one here in Pittston, and then now we have Drury. How did Drury become the location versus all other places in Luzerne County?
I requested it.
And how do we come up with that, I guess? Like, what's the thought process?
It was because it's a county-owned building, and we're basically staying with county-owned buildings to place our drop boxes. And the only county-owned buildings in northern Luzerne County are the Frank Crossan building and the one in 40 Fort. And then when we addressed the one in 40 Fort, everybody said it was too close to the election bureau and the parking wasn't good.
And I
Okay.
also can answer that the municipalities across Luzerne County started banning drop boxes because they didn't want them. So we had to resort to using county buildings in order to house the drop boxes.
Well,
Yeah.
a couple of municipalities did. Dallas Township did because, well, Ms. Fusaro went there and presented a resolution to try to get them banned. And then there was a group going around trying to ban them, Wright Township. So they spooked away the fire department, and then it moved to the housing authority in Wright Township. You know, there's been an active campaign against ballot drop boxes. This false narrative that there's rampant fraud with ballot drop boxes, but there is nothing to substantiate that. But anyways, the bottom line was those were the only two housing county-owned buildings in the northern part of the county to try to, when we lost the Pittston Library, to try to find a replacement for those voters in that part of the county. We have one in the eastern, the western, and the southern, the middle, but we've just been trying to find a replacement for those Pittston voters. And that was a large number. That Pittston ballot drop box was one of the second highest used ballot drop boxes in the county.
Sure. So I appreciate that. And listen, let me call it the way it is. We know this is a hot topic, a controversial subject. It's a political subject on both parties. And my question was, and one of the things I looked into is, obviously we know Drury's has a lot of more Democrats than it has Republicans, and I don't want us to be putting boxes in places that are more tilted towards certain parties. We have to be unbiased. So but you did answer my question. I appreciate it. One thing I've learned here, and I think Mr. Walsh mentioned it earlier, like the fact. More options we give the public, which is good, the more challenges and problems we have. And I've learned that here in a very short time. And that's one reason why I'm against these, because the more things we put out there, the ways to vote, the more challenges and complications we will have. So, you know, again, I don't want to hold up the meeting. I'm going to oppose this, and I'll end with the fact that it's not in the budget, and I'll just stick with where I'm at. So, but I appreciate the time to comment on that.
I'd just like to add, we get over $1 million with the election integrity grant and security of the ballots. Ballot drop boxes fall under that. And this is not much compared to the 350 or so thousand or plus that we spend on the Agilis and the large purchase we made for the e-poll books. This is for the voters. That was that's always been my objective, is to try to find a replacement for the Pittston ballot drop box because it was so well liked. Using county-owned buildings, that was the only reason. It's not based on where there's more Democrats or Republicans. And so my thought was always, how do we assist the voters who prefer the ballot drop boxes? Because there was a large number that did in that northern part of the county. Turn it over to Mr. Schramm and Mr. Schlosser if they have anything to add.
And I remembered mine after they're done.
The only thing I was thinking of is the cost is there, and then also that a little bit of security with people entering the building. I don't think that would be a big issue, but based on looking at the cost of what it would take, all the work that would be involved, I don't know if I would want to see one go up there. I like the one if it could have stayed in Pittston Library. That was a good location. It was for there with it. But to go over there and put one up the Crossing Towers, I went past there and looked at it. It looks, parking is fine for me, but like they said, if somebody walks by in the inside of the building, you've now opened the doors. And that could be a real problem for somebody else to slide in. So that would be one to say, you know, not maybe put it there.
Madam Chairman, yeah, I like the idea of the drop boxes because it gives senior citizens, people with disabilities, an opportunity to vote and make it easier for them. Second, how many people have been arrested for Dropbox fraud so far since you implemented the Dropbox? Did you have any idea with the district attorney know how many people were arrested?
None.
Oh, nobody's been arrested? With all the allegations of fraud, nobody's been arrested? Okay, that's all I want to know. If you don't have any statistics, maybe the district attorney has it.
So, are you, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
are you finished? I didn't want to step on your, okay. So my other thought that I wanted to point out is, we just, on the end of this agenda, we just approved putting, I don't know, anywhere from 5 to 15 people in seats, probably 5 to 8. Okay. No, probably closer to 5, right? 5 more people because we need screens for each of them. So we're talking 5 people that are going to be joining us for write-in adjudication now, and their salaries throughout that time period, whether or not they are county workers, and we're pulling them away from a different area, or whether we're adding them in. So the cost is not just the Dropbox, the cost is not just the video cameras and the security issues, but the cost is also goes to the workers as well, that we are going to have to, whether that looks like for, and I don't want to, I'm not speaking to something I know about. I want to say that I'm just saying that we're putting an awful lot on the Bureau as far as they are no longer with us for just this, the mail-in ballots. They're no longer with us for just certain other things. Now we're pulling them, and we are either hiring more personnel or whatever else for the other thing. And now you're adding almost $6,200 on top of all of that, plus the workers, plus everything else. And so we kind of just keep spending. And that was what I had meant to say before, and I didn't get a chance to say it. So I am, as always, against the drop boxes, but I am even more so now with this Dropbox, with the safety concerns for the senior citizens, the workers that we would have to have for, you know, the money that we would have to expense to put this in here. And I'm not happy about it. And it doesn't seem like it's a good spot for it to begin with. So that's all I had to say about it.
I'm just going to add that when Mr. Hahn said that the door opens and that people could get in, and he observed this, you observed that?
Yes.
And that residents have called you personally to tell you that they don't like the thought of a ballot drop box going in there?
People that were at the building when I was there,
They told you specifically they
Yes.
don't want a ballot drop box.
they were concerned about safety of the building.
Residents there told
Yes.
you that when
Yes.
you were there. They said they don't want that.
Yes, but it was a couple people. I didn't talk to everyone in the building, but there was a
So two
concern.
people told you they didn't want them there.
Yes, while the period of time I was there, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, my name is Jim Rose, and I'm the Division Director, the Division Chief, the Division Head for Administrative Services, and that includes the Bureau of Elections. So that's why I'm speaking right now. I'm also a Catholic deacon, and my parish is in Avoca. I have had 3 of the folks who live in Crossan Towers who came up to me, and they know of both of my jobs, and said that they do not feel safe having the drop box there because they know about how the front door operates. And they're concerned that people would come in and would do things they shouldn't be doing. And I'm only offering this because this is true. And I heard this last Sunday and a couple of Sundays before that.
I appreciate your comment. I would just say to you to tell them that I would recommend that not just for ballot drop boxes, but they've got an issue already, because if anybody can go in that front door and generate that opening, it could happen whether there's a ballot drop box in there or not. So maybe they should consider changing their setup to the way, since it is the housing authority, the right township has a fob, I guess.
That
So
was my
maybe
recommendation.
Since you are involved in the county, you may want to do some work on that.
I've
So-
recommended it to them, yes.
Yes.
I just want-
So, and
can I-
maybe
can I
it will
just-
get out in the public. Yeah. Yeah.
Just to say, the housing authority is not run by the county. The housing authorities are separate legal entities. I, as the county manager, have no control over the housing authorities. And the only involvement that council has with authorities is that they appoint their board members. So I just want everybody to be clear. Luzerne County, we don't insure that building. It's not on our list. We don't control that building. I just want everybody to be clear. Just because it's a Luzerne County authority building does not mean that the county owns that building. As a matter of fact, the authority is a separate legal entity. So I don't want anybody to be confused.
The last thing I'm going to say is I did the best I felt I could do for the residents of the northern part of the county, trying to help replace the ballot drop box that was lost. And personally, with the safety issue, it's not, and that's the only site that an additional county site besides the one in 44 that I know I am aware of. And so I'm going to say, I fought the fight for this, and if anybody else wants to take that on and continue that mission, that's on somebody else. But I don't see a future for a ballot drop box in the northern part of our county. Anybody else?
No, Denise, I agree with the security concern with the door there. That's not a good situation if somebody could enter that building. So I think that would, be a big problem, especially if somebody got in, somebody got hurt.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next agenda item, which is the Election Integrity Grant, April 2024 post-primary report. And that information, if the Election Bureau leadership would like to share anything about that, it's just really basically for informational purposes only.
I really don't have anything to add to. The board signed the report. We had a majority. We submitted the report for the deadline of the 90-day reporting. So we were in compliance with our reporting for the election integrity grant.
Any questions from any board members on that? Okay, we'll go to the next item, which is under the board. It's the Black Creek poll site. States updated information received by board from the Bureau leadership regarding relocation of bake sale to a separate room. It's on the agenda for information discussion, board vote on status of polling site going forward. At this point, the status is that we had voted that it would remain at the site that it's at, the church, for the November 2024 election, with moving it in the following, for the following election. But since we've had that vote, we've been made aware that the bake sale, I'll turn it over to Mr. Hahn and Ms. Cook, that there has been kind of a resolving of this issue.
Sure. So the bake sale has since been moved to a different room within that church facility, which then eases all of the concerns regarding having that in the same room.
And is there a separate entrance as well to
Yes.
the room where, so they wouldn't even be entering into the same door?
Correct. There would be no need for them to enter the same door if they're only there for the bake sale. They would only need to enter the door for the bake sale.
Wi-Fi solution has been cured and fixed.
That should have been fixed for the primary. And as far as I know, Mr. Asher can speak to, the Wi-Fi issue was resolved for you for the primary. Okay, thank you.
So at this point, we had already voted to keep it here for November, and it would be moved in, possibly moved if there was a site in the following year, and it would contracts go out. So what is your recommendation at this point to, I mean, that it
I
can
would
stay here
recommend
now?
we stick with what we voted on in the last meeting. At this point, there's no real need to change it in the immediate future for the 2024 election, and anything beyond that, we shouldn't even be worrying about. We're 76 days until election day.
One more question.
Yeah.
It was stated before, and I want to clarify, it was stated before, and I don't know who said it, that a grant money was used to re-up the other building specifically for the elections. That did not happen. Am I correct? That is not something that we could confirm?
I'm not sure. We can speak with the supervisors.
Steve?
My understanding, speaking with one of the supervisors, Dennis Farrar, was that they did receive some grant money for the recycling building. I'm not sure if a potential use was listed in there for voting, but that building is not a proper facility for conducting voting.
That's not where
because
we
there's-
were going to put it anyway.
There's no heat and there's no, right. The municipal building, that wasn't a grant for voting, to my understanding.
Thank you.
So they have a separate room then for voting? Ms.
Yes.
Cook? Yeah, I like the idea of keeping it in the church then, as long as, the voters are happy there and everybody else.
Right. So I think at
Church.
this point, there's really no action needing to be taken because the board
No.
voted in the last meeting that it was going to stay at the church for November,
Yeah, right.
with potential to move in 2025, but that we're not
But-
moving in
Yeah, if it's
2024.
Worked out, then it's fine.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Next item, number 2 under the board is variance request to PA Department of State for change of our provisional ballot outer envelopes to include yellow highlighting where signatures of voters and poll workers are required. I put this on the agenda, and it's on the agenda for discussion and board vote. I'll just say my part and open it up to everybody else for discussion. This to me is similar to the added highlighting, like the Pennsylvania Department of State did with the mail ballot envelopes at the last election. They kind of highlighted certain areas that everybody found that people were forgetting to do. I think this would be a proactive step to address this ongoing repeated issue we've had every election since I've been on the board, whether it's judges not putting their signatures, the minority inspector, the voters. We've had it every time. And not that the Bureau hasn't addressed it, because we've always asked the Bureau to address it. And they do educate the judges to say reminders and bring it up in trainings. But as the Election Bureau leadership has said too, that, you know what, despite how many times you say something, sometimes you know, you have new judges, these people fill in at the last minute, things happen. I just think it would just be an additional assist to the judge when they receive it back, to maybe at training saying, be sure these all yellowed areas have the signatures, because it can become a problem for the voter to have their ballot accepted. So I'm just thinking about how we could make sure we help these voters and the judges in every way that we can, if that would be like the mail ballots, an assist.
Madam
I
Chair.
know that, go right ahead, Mr.
Sorry.
Farley.
Yeah, no, if I could just add in, any way, I agree with you. I think any way we could alleviate confusion, help voters, help the workers, the better it will be for everybody. So it's that simple. I think it's a good thing.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Nope, done.
I just want to hear from Attorney Molino as to whether this can be done or should be done.
Yeah, you might not like what I'm going to say based on some of the current comments, but I'll probably take the opposite position here. I would recommend against it for a few reasons. Number one, if you were to do this, definitely requesting the variance is the way to go. I would not recommend you just voting to do it. We would vote to request a variance from the Department of State. But that being said, a few reasons. The first is a purely legal reason, that this very issue is pending before the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania right now in the Walsh-Cabell race, in that final appeal. We don't have the opinion yet. I don't know what that court's going to say, but the court may very well say that it doesn't matter, that shall might not really mean shall, that the one signature was enough, or voter intent or something like that. Again, we have absolutely no idea what the justices are going to say. But because this very issue is pending, that's a purely legal reason why I would say stay away from this vote. Some practical considerations: by asking to highlight these signature lines, you're saying they're more important than other fields on the envelope. And in my opinion, every field is important. There are dating requirements, there's the party registration. Why are we saying that? And they should all be filled out, and filled out appropriately. Why should we say that these two signatures are more important than those other requirements? And number three, it may have, again, this is not a legal opinion now, it may have the opposite effect. By highlighting something, you're pointing that out, you're calling attention to that. And now they may ignore some of the other fields. Now they're just so focused, like a laser, on, oh, those are the two highlighted lines, that's all we need to do. So the purely legal reason, we have a case pending before the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, and the other two more practical reasons are the reasons why I would recommend not pursuing this. But again, it's up to the board. I don't think you're doing something illegal, or, if you voted to seek this variance.
I would like to respond to that. First off, there are certain things on the outer envelope, as you know, Attorney Molino, that if it's omitted, like the party affiliation, like you said, or the address, that's not going to cause that's not considered a defect by the law, where we would not we would not have to vote on those to approve them. It's the signatures, the 4 signatures, and it's not based on the case. If the judge, we have had to, and we have invalidated ballots because the judge's signatures aren't on there, or the minority inspectors aren't on there. And we've had people come here to do public comment saying, my provisional ballot is not accepted because the judges didn't sign. And that's, to me, that's disenfranchisement. Now, I read an article in the Times Leader Ms. Andes wrote it, and she said that she had reached out to the Pennsylvania Department of State on this issue of what we were going to do and considering to request a variance. And their response to her, and she has it in quotes, was the Department of State encourages counties to employ practices that enfranchise voters and reduce county election burdens, including through solutions that make clear which portions of the declaration must be completed. They did this with the mail ballots. They highlighted areas, and I don't think they, first off, anything can be litigated, because we're choosing to highlight areas of the ballot. I'm not going to do that because it could be litigated, because what we're choosing to do. And I don't think it could be. I think what we're doing is we're trying to assist the judges and the voters to help to make sure that these signatures, which are the only things on the envelope that can really be the reason we vote not to approve them, and it happens every single election. And to say that it could have the opposite effect, like I said, I just want to reiterate, anything else on that envelope is not a reason to consider it a defect if the address isn't on there or the party affiliation. So I am fully in support of asking for this variance. And for those envelopes that are already here, I am totally willing to come in and highlight those. So that, and I'll sit in a room by myself and highlight those 4 areas. And I'd like that to be part of the variance. That is it okay for those that have already been ordered that don't have it to be highlighted?
So that it would be all of our provisional ballot materials that are already packed for this election.
Madam Chairman, could we
Be willing to do that.
wait till the Pennsylvania Supreme Court renders a decision on Mr. Walsh's case?
Well, if we wait, it's going to have to wait until our next meeting, which is September, which
Yeah.
is another whole month.
Yeah.
And then the variance, it won't happen for this
No.
election. I think that I would like to, is there anybody else who'd like to add comment? Because I'm going to make a motion.
I would.
To do the.
I would like to
include the yellow highlighting. Do you want to give a comment? Go
A
ahead.
comment, yeah. I'm gonna be honest here, and I'm say that I'm a little bit torn because elections are supposed to be held the same way across the entire state, and we have highlights on our provisional ballots, whereas Beaver County doesn't have highlights on theirs, and so that creates an issue for me. But at first I'm like, I was all for this because, we asked for a variance. We just highlight the signature names and or the signature lines to ensure that those lines are, are you talking all signature lines, or are you talking the judge, the two voter signatures? I mean, are you talking the minority inspector? What are you talking there?
All 4.
So
There are 4 required signatures on the provisional ballot envelope.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Okay.
request
Anybody
a
else?
variant. I
Any
don't-
other board members like to speak?
I would not like to sit there and yellow highlight everything, especially since they're all packed.
You don't have to.
And I think what they need to do is look for the variants that come out at the next printing, rather than try to do something for this one. Let it come out of the next printing and have the variants where you highlight it when it's printing and done by a printer. And that eliminates all this extra work that would have to be done by hand, especially since things are already packed. Why would you have to unpack them, highlight them, repack them? It's just let it go as it is and then see how it goes. Save a little work.
Ms. Cook, your bags for the judges are all completely packed.
All of the provisional materials for this election, exempting the ballots, because obviously we don't have ballots yet, have already been counted, organized, sorted into the packages for the provisional balloting materials for the upcoming election. So for all 186 precincts.
Wow, great job.
I'm on the ball.
50, you said 50. So that,
Okay.
that might be 9,300. And I just did the 186 times 50. Yeah, that's 9,300 envelopes.
Okay, well, I'm going to, unless anybody else has anything to add.
Madam Chair, but why don't we just table this for the future and see if the state gives us the variance?
Well, I was going to propose a motion to ask for a variance for going forward.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, sounds good.
Not to highlight these
Yeah,
that are already here.
yeah, I don't like
If-
to see votes wasted. I want every vote to
If I
count.
may, I understand what you're saying about highlighting and only the signature fields. However, you've also had to reject or call into question ballots that were missing their sticker because someone had put it on the secrecy envelope and not on the outer envelope as they were supposed to. So there are any number of scenarios, and what ultimately is happening with highlighting those signature lines, we're going to resolve one issue and create others, because then we're going to draw attention to only the signature lines, and someone is going to remember, I have to do the signatures, but they're going to forget the other important steps as well. Every step in that process is important. Every field, every area, regardless of where it's outlined in the code of what should and should not be counted. Every single issue and every defect, as we saw with this past election, was challenged. And
Yeah,
so
but
it doesn't
the
resolve
sticker-
the issue.
The sticker doesn't cause a defect.
It
to
doesn't
eliminate the
resolve
ballot.
the issue ultimately of our poll workers not completing the envelopes appropriately.
So
And
you're,
so what we are doing, and as we discussed at the previous meeting when this came
Focus on
about,
training.
was a greater focus on provisional balloting during training. We've already added additional slides. We've increased handouts and created additional information to try and prevent these issues. I think the main focus really needs to be on better training. And you made a comment that it was a lot of the newer judges that are the issue. It's a lot of our returning judges who have been doing it incorrectly for several years, or who have been doing it correctly every single time. Every election for 20 years, they've done everything perfectly. And then they have one election where maybe they're having an off day and they put the stickers on the secrecy envelope. Everyone has a day like that. And so ultimately, it's not going to resolve every issue.
Right.
And I would caution the board that this may cause unintentionally other issues by drawing attention to one specific problem that you've identified.
I just want to add that the stickers for the, so that the voter can go to the website to find out the status of their provisional is not something that will cause a defect for the board when we're adjudicating it. They can still, we talked about this at length, they can still call the Bureau and still the Bureau can let them know the determination of the provisional ballot, because we staple a card on every single one, whether it's been approved, rejected, and why, if it was rejected. So
And
that's
what
not
I'm-
a defect.
What I'm saying was not that it creates a fatal defect in that ballot. What I was saying is, as you all got to live through, as we all lived through it together, anything that could be a potential defect opens provisional ballots up to challenges. And that's that I think ultimately the ability of the voter to understand their ballot acceptance isn't it's a matter of convenience with the sticker.
Okay.
But we are once again heading into a very contentious election.
I just want to add, and then Mr. Morelli, I see your hand is up, and I don't know if it's been up or and I apologize.
I have a question. Are you good?
I'm just going to say again, one last time, that there are only 4 reasons for a defective provisional outer envelope, and that's if those signatures are not there. And it's been repeatedly happening ever since I've been on the election board since April of 2021. And we request every time for the Bureau to address it with the judges. And you're right, there are always going to be some who may have an off day, don't sign for whatever reason new. to me, this is an assist and that the Department of State use this type of highlighting on their mail ballot outer envelope for the same purposes. I don't think that, I think they found that that was a very helpful thing to do. So I feel that whatever we could do to try this, I think that it would be proactive to assist the voters in not having their provisional ballot rejected for a lack of any of those signatures. So I still am planning to make the motion to request the variance. And maybe it'll be just enough for the Pennsylvania Department of State to say, we're going to put it on all the envelopes. So Mr. Morelli?
Yeah, again, thank you. Real quick, I think I learned a lot since I mentioned before. I do still agree with what you're saying. But what I've learned is I think it's number one, too late for this election. And I would echo with one of the other gentlemen mentioned the fact that I don't think I'm comfortable voting on something for next election. Let's just table it and put it on for more discussion, since it's probably not going to pass for this election. Doesn't make sense. Too much time for many reasons. And let's just discuss it more. I'm all for helping the public identify the workers, whoever, to make their votes count. That's what I want. And I like the idea. But I think there's some challenges, and let's just discuss it more. So just my thoughts.
My motion is going to be for, not for this election. It's going to be for going forward for those mail ballot envelopes for future elections, not this election. And I realize it can't be done for this election.
But if it's for future elections,
you have to get
let's just discuss it more.
What's that?
I said if it's for future elections, then let's give it another meeting to discuss it more in depth. I think there are a lot of good points brought on both ends. That's all. And again, I agree with you. The fact that we're bringing it up for the public to understand it, and to maybe somebody else from on the state side to do something. I agree. They should. I just don't. I don't want to make a hasty decision.
I'm going to make the motion for it going forward to get the variance, at least to find out if it can be approved by the Pennsylvania Department of State, to set the wheels in motion for future elections. So I'm going to, unless anybody has anything to add, I'm going to make the motion for a variance request to the Pennsylvania Department of State for the change of our provisional ballot outer envelopes to include yellow highlighting where the signatures of voters and poll workers are required. Going forward. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Schlosser.
So just Madam Chair.
Yes.
So that would be for
Going
the
forward.
primary, but what is going forward mean for the
Primary 2025.
So 2025 primary and
Yeah.
beyond.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 2025 and beyond. So this is for the variance. And there was a second by Mr. Schlosser. I mean, yes. So Mr. Schlosser,
Yes.
Mr. Schramm,
Yes.
Ms. Vasaro,
No.
Mr. Morelli,
No.
and Ms. Williams, yes. The motion passes 3 yes, 2 no to request the variance. And maybe do you want me to put that together, or that probably is a legal document for the Office of Law? You could work on that.
I'll send it, but I mean, if you have some language you want to send to me, that's fine.
All right. I didn't know if you'd be willing to do it.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll go to number 3, which is a request for Spanish translation inclusion on the back of the mail-in ballot, how to pack your ballot instruction card. I put this on for information discussion, and if required, if a required board vote. We discussed this, gosh, I forget, it was the April 10th meeting. In doing the minutes, I noted that I had forgotten about it, so I put it on this agenda. At that time, it was requested, and Ms. Cook said she would look into getting that card amended. This is the card. It tells the mail-in voter what to do. The back is blank. And what we did, the ballot has the Spanish translation. For the last election, we spent a lot of time making sure that the ballot question also included the Spanish translation. We asked for a variance from the Pennsylvania Department of State, and they approved it. But when I received my mail-in ballot with all that, I looked at this and thought, wow, we went through all those motions to get the Spanish translation for the ballot question, and it's on the ballot. but what to do and how to send your mail ballot back has no Spanish. So the request was, could we have that added? And you were going to check into that. So I'm just following up on it.
Sure. So the Department of State actually recently updated their instruction sheets. We already had ours printed for this election. So we will need to reprint them anyway with the updated instruction sheets. And so if the board would like to request us to do those in Spanish as well, you could vote on it, or we can just move forward with doing that as part of our standard procedures. There is a Spanish translation for the new instruction sheets already in existence. So
also this will be
that
revamped.
is already out of date.
Oh, so they won't be using cards, and it's already going to be included, the Spanish translation?
Yeah,
And
I
how
can
to-
include it in the updated. I want to say it was the beginning of the month, issued a new directive with the form of the absentee mail-in instructions. So we'll need to update them anyway to include the date of the election.
Okay.
So that will be an expense incurred for every single election, as we will need to now print election to election updated instruction sheets. So it's not a problem at this time for us to do
Okay.
that.
So the Spanish is on there already, so we don't have to address it at
It
all.
will be, you don't need to vote.
Okay, all right. All right. Next item, number 4, is the bipartisan ballot drop box. This is the last item actually on our agenda. The ballot drop box review committee report on re-review of the previous committee's discrepancy and findings. This was it's on for Ms. Fusaro and myself. It's on for information. The reports were attached to the agenda. The Pittston Library Dropbox report was pages 42 through 43, and the Misericordia Pass and Hall ballot Dropbox report was 44 through 45. And I'll turn that over. Do you want to start? Go ahead.
Yeah, I can start. So ballot Dropbox footage re-review for Pittston Library, which is page 42 of the agenda. This investigative review was done by a bipartisan team of the board members. Basically, it's just what you see here. That we kept log times meticulously while watching it. So if we saw a timestamp, we saw somebody walking up to the box, it was written down, the timestamp was written down. How many people walked in, and the ballots, the number of ballots, assuming we could tell, the number of ballots that they were carrying. At times it was very clear, at times it was not. So starting with Pittston Library, it wasn't that clear with, I don't know if you've ever seen the video skip because of data issues. So that's what was happening. You'd see that little trail, and then all of a sudden they're at the box. So you didn't see them walk up to the box. You saw all of a sudden they were there. So occasionally you would have those glitches at the box. We no longer have a drop box there, so that kind of cures that problem. But after the re-review, we witnessed 213, initial report, as many know, there were 247 ballots, which were reported as being collected by the sheriffs at the Pittston Library on October 25th of 2022 at 15:04, which is 3:04 p.m. So what we did was we watched from pickup at 2:49 on the 20th to pick up at 3:04 on the 25th, and reviewed every single day. And as you can read the details here, but 213 visitors actually did visit that drop box, dropping off anywhere from 235 to 241 ballots. Now, the the people that walked in, you couldn't tell whether they were having I mean, I saw one guy with a map in his hand. We found out how to zoom in. So we figured out, we actually did a re-review of the re-review. And once we figured out we could zoom in, so we could zoom in on the ones that we were questioning initially to see if they were one or two. So we actually went back, re-reviewed a good portion of them, not all of them, because that would have killed me. So I still have no idea how you and I didn't kill each other through that process, but we didn't. We were pretty good. One thing that I noticed is when you moved it around, if you moved the slider along the bottom, it would fast forward right past. You could have missed a whole bunch of people, but it looked like you were watching it in real time. So I think, in my opinion, that is what happened with both boxes in the initial review. Was somebody was touching that little slider thing at the bottom, and it looks like you're still watching pretty good. But what you don't realize is you are literally skipping past a whole bunch of people. So you have to watch it at, and we could not go past 4 times speed on either one, because you just didn't feel comfortable past that speed. Okay, because you felt like you were going to miss something or whatever. So we didn't go past 4 times speed, and then we'd slow it down every time somebody came in, and we'd actually put it on slower and go even slower to watch it in slow motion so we could see. Believe it or not, sometimes when you saw the 2 ballots, you would see like the W, the two. That's the W. So that's the W. Okay. So you could see, that's how you'd know they were carrying 2 ballots. So believe it or not, someplace the Pittston wasn't all that clear, but the other one was really pretty clear. You want to take the second one? Or you want me to do it?
No, I'll just add a couple points to Pittston, and then you can start
Okay.
Pass and Hall. As Ms. Fusaro, I do want to say Ms. Fusaro is very good technologically. She's very good at figuring things out, figuring out how to zoom in. I have to give her a lot of credit for that. But as you could see, 235 to 241 ballots that we put approximately observed. And the reason for that in the report has 247 received is it wasn't always easy, as she said, because sometimes there were trails or artifacts, or when certain times when somebody moved, it would glitch and they would have dropped it in and left. And so it was hard for us to zoom in on some of them to really get exact. If there could have been some that looked and appeared to have put in 1, but it could have been 2, and we might not have seen that W because they could have been holding them so close together. The other thing is there were two of the files that in between the file from one file to the next, because we go through each file, there were 2 minutes not on the recording. They ended and there was a minute gap, and it was when the library was open. And in doing that, we decided at one point, let's see how long it takes somebody to come in and deposit a mail ballot. And it was 10 seconds when we checked the one. So in a minute or 2 minutes, those 6 that are unrealized or could be in that part, also it could be, we missed seeing where it was 2 instead of 1. So it is an approximate, but I also want to state that the sheriffs who picked up were very, followed the protocol on retrieving, checking the box for more, sealing, placing seals, doing their documentation. So they were really following the outline of the chain of custody form. So I wanted to give them credit. But I on the Pittston Library, I do believe that it was 247. I think that what you're seeing is us missing some, and also the 2 minutes probably where they could have come in. So I didn't have any concerns after we reviewed all of that, but go ahead if you want.
Okay, so no revisits to the box that I was aware of that I could see were witnessed, because that was one of my concerns, watching someone come 2, 3, 4, or 5 times to a box. Okay, so I did watch out for that, and no obvious fraud as far as, stacks of ballots were put in as far as the Pittston Library during that time that I witnessed. A lot of people putting in to here, to here, to here, with the Misericordia University, same type of situation, 2 completely different video watching experiences, systems, whereas this, we fast forwarded and kept it on fast forward through the night. This, you'd all of a sudden you'd be at 11 p.m. and then all of a sudden you'd be at 4 o'clock in the morning because a bird flew by the window. So there was a lot different with this one. Usually you'd see somebody come in and open the doors. We watched them open and lock the doors every morning and night. 130 ballots were reported as being collected by the sheriffs at Passon Hall. After review, we witnessed a total of 118 voters, with dropping anywhere from 128 to 132 in the box. Again, security guards locked and unlocked the doors daily. We were initially, when we were watching it and the gaps started happening, either her or myself, or Denise or myself, we would be watching it and then all of a sudden look up and be like, whoa, did you see that? It jumped from such and such a time to such and such a time. And we had no idea what these gaps in time were or why it was skipping like that. And then nighttime happened. And that's when we got the really huge gaps, because there was no motion. And that's when we realized, but to confirm, we called campus security. We had Manny, where's Manny? Manny called campus security and confirmed that it is in fact a box that has, or a camera that has motion detection. So we did confirm that, made watching a lot easier when there's no detection there, and it just, nobody there, and it turns off for itself, turns itself off for a while.
I appreciate both of you guys doing this work. I think it's great that you guys put your time in and put a report out to the public, and I'm sure everyone could read it. So I think it's great, and I applaud both of you for taking the time for that. So I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
is this the last part of the agenda, or are we?
Yeah,
is there
this
anything
is
that we
it.
need to
I'm
vote
almost-
on? Are
I'm
you
almost done.
Okay, great.
During ballot pickups by the deputies, all procedures were followed. Video footage was extremely clear. That's where we found out where we could zoom in and everything. No revisits to the box were witnessed. Again, number of voters brought in more than one ballot, but again, there's no way of telling whether or not they had the proper paperwork, and no obvious anomalies or fraud was witnessed. Denise?
Yep, I'll just add again, there's a little bit of a discrepancy. As you can see, 130 ballots were reported on the chain of custody forms, and we have approximately 128 to 132 ballots that we noted as being put into the box. And the reason for that, again, is it's not always easy to tell if there's two, if they're very close together. And so we were kind of talking to each other a lot, like, I think that's one, I think that's two, and then we review it, re-review it. And then what we would do is say, I think it's one, or I think it's two with a question mark. So that's why we came in with this range, because even we weren't always certain if it was one or two. So that's why there's that range that we put approximately, but if the 130 falls right within that range. And I believe that it was all accurate. And again, I think that, as Ms. Fusaro had said, when it was initially done, I think it was just a matter of clicking and they were missing frames and may not have realized, probably did not realize that was what was happening when they were clicking. That was all. And so I don't think there's anything else to add to that. It wasn't on there is just on for information. It's nothing that needs to be voted on. And that was all for that. So the last is now public comment on.
Really quick, does anybody from the board have any questions on what we did or comments?
Very good. Better you
Thank
than
you.
me.
You did a very good job. It's very time consuming and boring.
Okay. We'll move into public comment on non-agenda items. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters not listed on the agenda, but which must be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Again, it's limited to 3 minutes, 1 comment time per person, and we'll start again with anyone who's in person. Go right ahead. Just state your name and your municipality, please.
Again?
Yes.
Ben Herring, Duryea. All right, so Mr. Rose, I believe is Jim. Did you just get into this position recently? Congratulations, welcome aboard. I applaud you because I could just tell you're an objective thinker already. And that's nice to see. I could tell you that Emily and Steve, I didn't really know them. I had heard.
Please address the board as a whole.
I can't speak about
please address
how
the
well
board
of a
as
job
whole.
they're doing. You don't want
Thank
your.
you. Thank you. But I'm just reminding you that when
This
you
is the
do
problem
public
with
comment,
this
it's
meeting.
to-
Okay, I'll get right into it. Okay, great job, by the way, for you guys. If you look at that charter right there, it says, and you guys are all covered under the charter, by the way, just a reminder, but it says you need to have respect, the welfare and equality of all residents, all, not Democrats only, all residents. Okay, I've been listening to this board meeting for 3 years. I usually can't make it. I finally was able to come here in person. It's even worse in person than it is listening to it on Zoom. You have an agenda, Miss Williams, and it's so obvious here.
Please address the board as a whole.
Okay, I'll address the entire board since the votes are usually 3-2. This board has an agenda. And the agenda seems to be driven by this desire and infatuation to just follow all the talking points of a partisan political state that we're in right now. It is polarizing. Somebody said that before, and you're absolutely right. But Mr. Schramm, I give him credit because he was objective as well. He actually thought on his own and didn't just follow talking points from a political party. That's what I heard here tonight. There's an infatuation with drop boxes. You just said here, and I'm glad this is recorded because I wrote some stuff down. You can't confirm that it was 6 ballots. There might have been the W, there might have been a Y, maybe it was a Z, maybe somebody threw water on it. You can't tell. You can't stand here with an absolute statement tonight and say 20 people showed up, 20 ballots were counted. You also can't confirm they had the proper credentials to drop off ballots for their family members if they were sick, which we all would agree that's the right thing to do. We have to confirm that. We're not against disenfranchisement, but we're for legal votes. Legal votes. That's the part of the story that everybody likes to keep out. You know, there's some comments here tonight about, has anybody been arrested? You guys in Luzerne County hasn't shown us the video in 2.5 years. How are we supposed to know if there's any discrepancies that anybody should get arrested? I'm a veteran. There were Trump votes in 2020 that were thrown away in the dumpster out back that the DA investigated. Has anybody seen that report? I haven't. Guess what? It was thrown away. There's also the last 3 years the DA did investigations that we have not seen. So you have a duty to the public, but the reason nobody's been arrested is because nobody's looking at anything. You guys are finally doing a bipartisan review, but up until I think we raised the issue about these drop boxes, nobody was looking at it. Before the first review was done, you admitted you guys didn't even look at it. How do you arrest somebody if you don't see the crime?
Thank you very much. Anybody?
Mike Potsko, Hanover Township. I'm going to piggyback off that because it's completely correct. You can't prosecute without evidence. And if we don't have security there to verify that they have the credentials to drop off more than one vote, then there's no way to prove whether it's a valid election or not. I'd also like to point out that you're trying to put in these drop boxes that don't even get 300 votes at a location. So you're trying to enfranchise people when there's thousands of people that make it to the voting places and everything. Why is this a priority for the resources that we have in this county and the resources that should be required to make it fair and secure, which we're not doing? Why would we go out of our way for what I believe was 377 ballots cast, which could have been dropped into mailboxes? So I'm just not sure why these ballots, and I would also like to point out that, yes, we have not been provided public information, and I believe it was on the grounds of security, and yet this board has discussed, and some people actually appreciated the fact that people were afraid of their security based on the building that the drop box was supposed to go into. If your security is important, so is theirs. And if they have concerns, I don't think this board has any right to dismiss their concerns over their security on this type of scenario. And that appalled me to hear that type of dismissal of their concerns for security when you use it to prevent us from seeing public information. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anybody else in person? Ma'am in the front row, go right ahead.
Hello, my name is Brenda Yurchak. I'm from Exeter Borough. To go back to the security with the senior buildings or housing authority, I take care of my mother. She's up in age. She's currently living in Pittston Housing Authority. I can't legally get into her building unless I have a fob. Due to parking issues, I also have to fill out a form since I'm her daughter and her caretaker. They need my license plate. They need my insurance. They need me as her emergency contact form. And they have to give me a placard or a sticker so people can know that just because I don't live in the building, that my mother does. So there is security within these buildings. Going back to the mail-in ballots, my first priority is safety for my mother. Second thing is we're placing these drop boxes in vigorous locations. The buses run to come to Wilkes-Barre. If there's a drop box in Wilkes-Barre, taxis, Uber, people can get out there and do this. I take care of my mom. So if she needs to bring her mail, or if I take her for voting, there's other places, other avenues besides the drop-in boxes. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anybody else in person? All the way on the left, the gentleman in the green sweatshirt. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Matthew Shields. I'm from Nanacoke. I just want to ask the board if you guys can verify with certainty that not a single illegal alien is registered to vote within this county. You can't. Another question for you. What is your plan to make sure the county's polling locations don't run out of paper ballots like they have in 2022 in Kingston?
Actually, I can answer that. We have been checking. How many pieces of paper do we have currently?
Just over 1 million sheets of paper
All
currently in our
right, we
warehouse.
promise you we will not run out of paper this time.
Do your polling locations have generator backups in case the power goes out?
So that's an emergency ballot situation.
And our equipment has backup batteries in place.
But wouldn't the voter not be allowed to access a public building if the power goes out?
We also have
contingency-
plans. We also have contingency plans with our emergency response services. We with our EMA and the county generators that we have.
Do you know how many votes provisional ballots had to, in Kingston, that had to be filled out when they ran out of paper? How many of those ballots were rejected?
We had an adjudication meeting after November of 2022, and it was an open public meeting. And I don't have those numbers on the top of my head. I don't remember all of any of the adjudication meeting numbers, and I'm sure the other board members don't either. But you can look up all that information in the minutes online.
And I do want to say that special consideration was taken during that time with the fact that paper there was a paper shortage. So the provisional ballots were absolutely, there was extra consideration given there, special consideration given there.
When could the public have a time frame that you could give a yes or no answer on illegal aliens registered to vote?
The Department of State has some wonderful resources in terms of fact checking election claims. I would recommend looking on their website for up-to-date information, because I know that is one of the topics on their website.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the questions.
Okay, anybody else in person? Go ahead, right in the back.
Thanks again, Peter Restaino from Jackson Township. I echo some of those questions that the gentleman that was just up here just asked. And I guess to the illegal issue, regardless of what Ms. Cook says in reference to the sources available for us, have you guys as a board done anything to provide or look at some assurances that in fact the voting process won't be exposed to, dealing with illegal votes and those that are not, properly registered and whatnot qualified to vote? Have you had any manner of addressing that issue in any of your conversations to this point? Because clearly, with what we've seen that's come into the county, whether by bus, whether by plane, and across the country, it's not an unusual situation here. The illegal voting process the illegal voting risk is there. And certainly, I'm sure your priority is the residents and the taxpayers and the American citizens. But my question in follow-up to him is direct, and that is, have you guys discussed the issue? And is there any manner of which there's anything you have done or can do to assure that that process isn't abused?
We've discussed this issue multiple times and had the same question, multiple meetings over several years that I've been on here. And I know Ms. Cook has addressed this by recanting the checks and balances within the Election Bureau, registration process, mail ballot application process, and all of the requirements that a voter has to go through when they do their voter registration form and their application form, and also if they do it at the motor vehicles, that the checks and balances there now to prevent that, and the steps that have been taken by the Pennsylvania Department of State to refine that when there was an issue early on many years ago. But I don't know if Ms. Cook wants to add anything to the checks and balances within the system for that.
And if I could interject, thank you. So as I understand it, the process by which they could potentially, be able to walk up and vote is they're getting registered to vote when they go for the driver's license or their ID. Is that correct or not in the state of PA?
You need to be a citizen in order to register to vote in Pennsylvania. You need to be a
To register to vote, but not, but if again, as the
And
state
the
issues.
automatic voter registration, I'm sorry to cut you off,
No, no,
but
go
the
ahead.
automatic voter registration
Yeah.
wouldn't automatically, it wouldn't register somebody that isn't a qualified person within the county or within the Commonwealth, actually. You need to be a citizen of the Commonwealth for 30 days before you're eligible to register to vote.
Okay.
And like I said, the Department of State website has an entire page dedicated to fact-checking election claims because there are a lot of questions swirling around the Commonwealth and all around the country now.
Sure.
And so a great resource would be to check those claims because they provide detailed answers to all of these types of questions.
Okay, and the quick question, I know the buzzer rang, was, are there any links for these machines throughout the voting process or thereafter when the vote is tallied that are tied to an open internet connection?
No.
No,
Okay.
absolutely
All
not. And actually, I will speak to that. We had I actually had the Dominion guy open up a RAN. I pointed to a machine and I said, open it up. And he actually showed me where the modem would go if it were connected to the internet. So I actually inspected the inside of the machine. The whole entire board did at the time. They do not connect to the internet,
All right, thanks.
the scanners.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in person? Right in the front row? Go ahead.
Joe Grantee, Plains. Just to add on to what he was just talking about, I think it would be helpful if the county would put a hotline in for any information for someone who doesn't have any credibility voting, have a hotline to report that. I'd just like to address the part where he asked if anybody was ever arrested for fraud. In this last primary election, we had 4 ballots that were most likely fraudulent, and we cannot get anybody to do an investigation on it. We had 4 ballots that were not signed by the citizens, witnessed by the same person, and put in a drop box. Now, if this person put 4 ballots in a drop box, that's illegal. It should be investigated. This is the second time I brought this up. In 2022, I brought up issues with the boxes that the paper was in, and it was pushed under the rug. Okay, it took me 5 times to address somebody to actually look at it. And when I did get somebody's attention on it, they tried to invalidate it right from the start. They didn't even want to see what the problem was with the box that made it unsecure. So I have no confidence in the investigative system in Luzerne County. Somebody else needs to do the investigation on these 4 ballots because this person could have done 4,000 ballots, and we don't know. Is there any way to audit single candidate ballots? When we go to the ballot box, we vote for all the candidates. Is there any way to find out how many paper ballots come in and only 1 vote was made on those? And who they're voting for during the adjudication or any other time?
If there's a ballot and there's only 1 vote on that ballot, it comes up in the adjudication on the big screens. It's a public meeting and you can see that.
And do we get to see all the ballots or? Okay,
Pretty
so
much all of them, because the filters that are set,
do we know how many were brought in like that
about 30,000 came up on the screen.
with one
No,
vote?
that's in total.
How many with
We
one?
haven't tracked for one specific,
I would say that that's a
candidate
red
or
flag
one-
for voter fraud.
Oh.
If somebody comes in and just wants to vote for one person and it doesn't match up with the percentage of people who go into the,
He's talking down ballot. He's talking like,
yeah.
they only voted for one person on the top of the ticket and didn't vote anywhere else on the ballot. It's all, we scan for that. It's called undervotes. But they don't come up in the sense that you're talking about. I mean, what they do is you can actually view that during adjudication. They all come up on the screen. If they didn't mark a ballot or a box, it actually comes up on the screen. You can count as many as you want, as they will all come up.
I can do that?
Yeah, you can come and
Sit right
you
in the
can
room
sit
and
right in the room and watch
Okay,
us
because
do it.
I'm gonna sit right next to you
Okay,
next time.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Anybody else in the room would like to speak? Yes, go right ahead in the back in the blue shirt.
Alan Henninger, Dallas Township. Judge of Elections had a question for the Bureau, basically. I see that we have a set of new training dates that we received communication about. I did not see any designation for poll book training pulled out separately like recently. So I'm under the impression that the poll book training is in with the general poll worker training.
It will be covered in the general poll worker training and the judge of elections training.
Right. Now,
Mr. Henninger, you have the office phone number too, correct?
absolutely.
Okay, just making sure.
Absolutely. But my question basically, and a little bit of the comment is concerning the discussion here on a training. And you indicated that, especially with the provisional envelopes. Okay. And I agree. I sat through those trainings and I agree there was not the concentrated effort to instill in the judges that this was a real critical aspect, very important to the ability for that voter to actually have their vote counted. And that needed to be stressed. And I'm glad you brought it up because I had noticed the same thing. And I'm a little concerned now that in the training that we might need more time if we're going to put more concentration in here, because I've sat through a number of the trainings and I've seen them kind of rush because it seems like there's a deadline here that we have so much time for this training and we got to move on. And it doesn't leave time for questions, answers, and in-depth training as well. And then we stick an extra topic in there too. And I'm a little concerned about that.
So I think those are very valid points and I appreciate that you're bringing them to us. I would recommend reaching out to our trainer. I know she provides her contact information during every training and is always more than happy to answer questions or feedback. So if you'd like to give the office a call, I'm sure she'd be more than happy to discuss your concerns at that point.
And I appreciate that. And I realize that. And I have tried that. Okay. And in some aspects, unsuccessfully tried that. So I need to reach out differently in order to get different things. At times, and I finally have contact with Mr. Khan now.
So if you'd like to reach out to our office tomorrow, you can feel free to ask for me and we can have a conversation then.
I always enjoy a conversation with you.
Likewise.
For many years and very informative. Every time I get a chance, and I don't get as many chances as I'd like, sorry to go over time. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henninger.
Anybody else in the room who'd like to speak? Yes, right there, black shirt. Art Blucher.
Hi, my name is Karen Pinka and I'm from Wilkes-Barre. And now that we're coming up on the presidential election, I'm a little concerned. In 2020, there was some voter fraud in Luzerne County and the people weren't properly prosecuted for their fraud. There was a gentleman who used his mother's ballot to vote for Trump. So he did 2 votes, and I want to make sure that dead people aren't voting for Trump. So I'd like to know, make sure that doesn't happen again. And why wasn't that man prosecuted and thrown in jail? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak? Go ahead.
Jamie Walsh from Ross Township. I'd be remiss if I didn't congratulate Emily Cook for director. I think you did a fabulous job in my election. I think you deserve it. So I did want to make that point. A couple of things. One of the things that I do want to address is in 2023, Judicial Watch had filed a lawsuit against Pennsylvania in 5 counties about not having their voter rolls clean. Are we in the situation now where our voter rolls are clean? They're 100% up to date?
So if I may, Luzerne County follows the law regarding list maintenance activities. We completed our list maintenance activities, and that includes everything having to do with the voter rolls. Over the course of the summer, I'm sorry, I did write down a detailed response to this question. So through a series of mailings and notifications to voters with potential address and registration changes, we send a letter. The voter records are then updated with the responses or lack thereof in accordance with Pennsylvania law, claiming that the county does not follow proper voter roll removal procedures is patently false. And furthermore, there are numerous sources out there that are currently pulling outdated information and providing it through the same data sources that we get ours from, but it's generally been found to be inaccurate information. These entities and individuals are making false claims regarding voter roll maintenance procedures and what we legally can and cannot do. For perspective, over the course of this summer, we sent 1,497 in-county move notices, 339 out-of-county move notices, 987 out-of-state notices, 842 address verification notices, and 393 5-year inactive notices to voters in Luzerne County. So we are up to date with the responses as they are coming in. We're updating our records accordingly, and marked and flagged inactive voters, and will complete list maintenance activities with all of the procedures as outlined by Pennsylvania law.
Okay, thank you. That was a great response. Thank you so much.
We're also in compliance with the Judicial Watch settlement.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I did email Judicial Watch a couple days ago just to ask them if things were still up to date, if they were still talking to Luzerne County. I've yet to have a response yet. So thank you.
I mean, Jean can speak to whether they're talking to our legal counsel, but I don't believe they are. But we have to report to the Department of State, and the Department of State posts the compliance. But we are in compliance with that settlement.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And then the last thing I
it.
have.
Time's up. 3 minutes. We're actually, you went over a little, 3 minutes.
There was a question
Right.
response.
Well, that's what happens when there's a back and forth. It's 3
So
minutes is the
Ben
max.
Herring is going to be emailing the board about the Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act. He's going to send you a full report. He has it here.
Okay.
But he's going to be making you aware of some other potential fraud issues coming from overseas.
Thank you.
It's pretty new. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room who'd like to speak? Yes, go ahead.
Lisa Evans, Dallas Borough. I just wanted to follow up on Jamie with voter fraud. My parents and my father died in 2020. My mother died in 2021, and both receive mail from Mike Cabell to my address because the address was changed. So I don't know how that happens. So I don't know how they're not up, how no one's notified that they're deceased, and why do they continue to get information from their Republican Party?
So I will say that first and foremost, I don't know. I can't speak to the Cabell campaign, but what I can tell you is that you can't. The state and the county and those lists versus a campaigns list are two completely different things. Okay, because they may have gotten it from the county. They may have gotten the voter list from the county back in 2020 or 2019
It was
or
just the
2018,
spring.
whenever. Okay, and they could have. But did you work for the Cabell campaign?
No.
Okay, so you wouldn't know their list that they sent you that list from, is what I'm saying. And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying that you have to if you find something, if you find something in the county voter rolls right now, an updated voter roll, and there's someone, I'll be honest with you, I did my checks. Okay. And I did that. I went and I checked for dead people that I knew
Okay.
were dead. So
Do you have any
I'm
other
just saying.
questions?
No, that's what I just needed to be cleared up.
If you want to, I'm
Nope.
sorry,
Go ahead.
if you wanted to verify, call our office. then
That's what I think I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
because I'd
our
like
staff
to
can
know that.
assist.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Yes.
Desiree Edwards, Floresville. This is going back to the Bureau's budget for the drop boxes, security cameras, and everything that goes along with it. Is that budget does that come from taxpayer money?
I think the whole county's budget does.
Okay, so the whole budget for the Bureau is taxpayer money.
Well, we also have a integrity grant. But our grants and the entire county budget also consists of grants, but it's taxpayer money, whether it's Luzerne County taxpayers or taxpayers across the country when we receive federal grants, or across the Commonwealth when we receive state grants.
Okay, thank you. So if there's no money in the Bureau funds, why would we deplete everything and have such a hard push on drop boxes and security, which the security obviously isn't any good?
Well, I think we determined that we're not moving forward with any of that.
We
so-
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
We
right,
voted.
thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Anything else? Anybody else in person?
Audrey Cerniak, and I live in Plains Township. Thank you. I just wanted to really commend the board and the Bureau. Over the years that I've been witnessing these meetings, I really haven't seen any other agenda other than to run safe, secure, fair, and accurate elections here for all of the voters here in Luzerne County. I've always been impressed about the honest discussions that have happened in these meetings. Very often people don't agree, but the rancor is really at a minimum, all things considered. The Bureau has always been here to provide all the information that the public should have. Everything's been extremely transparent. Again, I got to commend everybody that we've gotten excellent advice from the Office of Law. And as far as resources go, you're running elections for all of the citizens of Luzerne County, all the voters. I've always found drop boxes be very convenient, also more secure. I prefer to use them other than the mail. That can be iffy at times. There's time limits. We have on occasion had mail stolen out of postage boxes. Some ballots, I believe, were stolen a few elections ago. And it's basically only because somebody discarded them on the street and they were found that these people's votes were eventually counted. I don't think I don't believe that we should go outside the law, obviously, in running these services for people. But I don't see why the counties who provide the least amount of accommodation for their voters, I don't see why we should follow them. I think we should accommodate our voters and not just say, well, we should go by, not all the counties run things the same way. I don't think they necessarily have to do. Maybe they should come up and meet our standards as opposed to us going back and following their standards. I do think that it probably was a good idea not to make too many substantive changes for this coming election. There is a lot of security risks out there, and I think that's where our attention should be. As far as the voter rolls, if you're familiar with the SURE system, that is set up by the state. That's their system. There was a time when I think we were trying to vote on something regarding the SURE system, access to it. And we were actually advised by the Office of Law, no, don't do it because you're impinging on the state's prerogatives, on their system, and you don't want to acquire any of that liability. So we really just have to follow the SURE system as administered by our state, our Commonwealth. Again, I just want to thank everybody because so far everybody's been doing a fabulous job. I want to thank management as well. I know they're on top of the security risks that we might come into. And well, again, just thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Anybody else in person?
Sorry, I don't mean to belabor the meeting, but it should be pretty quick. I did think of something in the midst of the discussions. Oh, sorry, Amy Carosa, 44. I work at two separate locations in Wilkes-Barre, and at both of my places of employment over the course of the past two, the election in 2020, and then also the latest primary election, I've received numerous mail-in ballot applications at my places of employment, and they weren't sent by the county. I just didn't know if anyone could explain why these are not residences. They're places of employment, and it's multiple applications at one time.
Ms. Cook?
So third-party entities will send out applications. Unfortunately, it's not something that we have any control over. But what they are required by law is to provide the information as to who is sending it on every application that you're receiving. It'll say it's Luzerne County, but the third-party applications need to provide their information as well. And I would reach out to them directly and say, I don't want to receive this, or please stop sending me mail to my workplace.
Yeah, because they're not like they're not residences at all.
Right.
So how are they even getting employment addresses, or they just
I really-
randomly?
I
We don't
really
know.
cannot speak to it.
They would have to. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, look, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in person? I don't see any hands. Okay, so we'll move to the online platform. We'll start with Joe. You'll unmute yourself and state your name and municipality.
My name is Joseph McCabe. I'm from Laughlin, Pennsylvania. Back to the non-citizens on voter rolls. This is a real issue. We've seen it in 2 states in the last month. Virginia had to purge 6,000 non-citizens from their voter rolls. I believe Alabama had to purge about 2,600 non-citizens from their voter rolls. So hopefully if anybody in the Election Bureau sees anything wrong, they're contacting the state or even better, Department of Homeland Security. So You could say it's a conspiracy theory, but it's a real issue. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, RK,
Ronald Knapp from Nanticoke. First of all, I want to congratulate Mrs. Cook on her promotion to director. Her responses have been right on spot, and she's prepared. I can see this election going off fairly well under her guidance. In all due respect, Madam Chair Williams, time management is of essence. I've been in adjudication processes, and I've seen where a lot of time is spent with the board and dedicated at no compensation whatsoever. So the first public comments I mentioned about the motion detection securities cameras, I would recommend that you discuss at all locations, all the cameras be set on motion detection so that there isn't so much time spent reeling through the data to view the individuals placing the mail-in ballots in the mailbox or mail drop boxes. As far as security, Manager Crocomo, I appreciate your insight on this. At Ward 2 in Nanticoke, there was not a constable in position, and I hope come November 5th, that will be quite the opposite. This is going to be an epic day, a very pivotal day in our history, and security is of utmost importance. And lastly, as far as I'm concerned with the drop box in the northern counties, it was a win for them. It creates less seams and less cracks in the system. And I hope it is a domino effect for all drop boxes in Luzerne County. You all have a good evening now.
thank you. Mark Rabo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Mark Rabo from Hazleton speaking. With respect to the Dropbox security issue, Madam Chair, you and for your edification and Mr. Schlosser's, and I sent the board the email during that discussion. There was Lehigh County 2 years ago, over 280 separate incidences of ballot fraud where individuals were dropping multiple ballots into ballot drop boxes in Lehigh County. The Lehigh County District Attorney was trying to prosecute, actually indicted those individuals, tried to prosecute them, but the ACLU stepped in because it was considered in their eyes voter intimidation, because those individuals were either, they made the excuse that they did not know, they claimed ignorance basically, or that they tried to play the sympathy card, which is indicative of what happens in this county when a person gets caught dropping multiple ballots in drop boxes. So be that as it may, I still stand strong that the ballot drop box issue was imposed by a bunch of hyper-partisan zealots on the state Supreme Court and the hyper-partisan Secretary of State, Ms. Buckbar at the time. And during the COVID crisis, that she said the health and safety of the voter was at risk. Well, now the health and safety of the voter is not at risk, so there's no need for ballot drop boxes. I'll move on from that because I said that many times in the past. Two things for the upcoming election. One is with the non-citizen voters / illegal immigrants voting in our elections. To piggyback off of what was said, that is correct. Alabama, Vermont, and also there's been North Carolina, Georgia, and quite a few others that you would not think that would have non-citizen voters voting. And the cause for that is they were voting in local elections, and they thought that they were able to vote in local elections and they were not trying to vote in federal elections. So it was basically like splitting hairs. But I should let the board and the manager and the public know that yesterday there was a primary election in Florida, and there was a glitch in the website reporting for the results of the election. So I would ask the board and Ms. Cook and Deputy Director Hahn and Mr. Rose and County Manager Crocomo to look into this to see with our county reporting that if there would be a similar glitch that they can get to access to a vendor to correct the issue on election day, because this is not the only state that this happened in. It happened in Georgia recently, a few weeks ago. So I'm just letting you guys know that this is a possibility of happening. I don't know if it was a hacker or a vendor or a glitch that was the cause of this reporting problem with the website with the election results. So if you can look into that for possibility of a problem on election day, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morelli, I see your hands raised. It might just be up because it was never put down. Okay, I don't see anyone else online.
No, I'm good. Sorry, was on mute.
Okay, I don't see anyone else online with their hand raised. I have 2 emails that were requested to read into the non-agenda item. The one is by Robin and Walter Cochan from Dallas Township. It's regarding the July 17th, 2024 minutes to be approved at this August 21st meeting. It indicates that the board discussed whether minutes should be transcriptions or just basic info. The public does not appreciate sending in written commentary that is often read inaudibly, or when attending a meeting in person that the note taker only records their version in the minutes. We suggest it would be much more transparent to the public to include photocopies of the actual written commentary submitted by citizens. We would appreciate clarification on whether or not Luzerne County will have early voting, as Bureau staff recently indicated it is not available in this county, stating there is a lot of misinformation. If the board is sincere about upholding their duties for providing fair elections and not disenfranchising any voter, we expect you to follow election law as written, not by arbitrary guidance, and be fully transparent to all voters. We think you can agree that all of us want everyone's vote to count in fair and accurate elections and to have a productive relationship of taxpayers and government. While you allow time for public comment, our questions and concerns are mostly and often unanswered. Our taxes do fund your salaries and expenses. Instead of holding meetings that are essentially one-sided dialogue, we would appreciate the respect of answering our questions and addressing our concerns. Please consider allowing a 15-minute question and answer session at your meetings. Thank you in advance for your serious consideration. And the last one is from Denise Davis from Black Creek Township. And it states, I was told that I could use email for public comments on Wednesday night. It has been brought to my attention that there are still 3,700 voters that have moved out of Luzerne County still on the voter rolls. Why hasn't this issue been taken care of? Instead, private citizens have taken it upon themselves to send out forms and letters to these voters. They are doing all this at their own expense. I would like to know why the board hasn't done anything about this. Why does it take private citizens to get this done? I feel that it is the board's responsibility to get this done. In the last 4 years, I would like to know what has been done to make our elections more secure. We are still using machines that have been hacked, that can be hacked, drop boxes that have been proved to be less than safe. And now we have this issue with the voter rolls. It's not bad enough that our state has mail-in ballots and automatic voter registration, but we have voters on the rolls that do not belong there. If the board does not have the personnel to send out forms and letters, and ask for volunteers and reimburse them for their expenses. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn? Made by Ms. Fusaro. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Schlosser. All in favor say aye. Aye. No, meeting is adjourned at 8:44. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Please turn off your microphones.